In this video, I'm going to break down what life in Spain really costs if you're living on a fixed income, whether that be a pension, early retirement, or long-term savings, or whatever. And whether you're a single person or a couple planning to move together, this will give you a real-world look at what 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 euro a month actually buys you in Spain, or the lifestyle that it actually buys you in Spain, to be more accurate. Hi folks, welcome to the channel, welcome to Spain. I'm Steve, and today I want to look at what life really looks like here in Spain when you're living on a fixed monthly income. Now, as I said, that could be savings, that could be pension, that could be early retirement income, or long-term savings, and whether you're coming here on your own or as a couple. And the big question is always, will we have enough to live comfortably? I've been living in Spain a few years now, and I've met people from all kinds of situations. Couples with decent pensions, solo retirees making every penny count, early retirees like myself living on carefully planned budgets. So in this video, I just want to share what I've learned using real numbers, real scenarios to help you see what's realistic, what's comfortable, and whether your income will stretch the way you hope it will. Now, a quick word before I dive in. I need to first of all be clear that I am no expert on anything. I'm not an expert on law, finance, or immigration. I'm just an Irish guy who's been through most of these processes and is sharing what I've learned. My goal is to give you a realistic perspective, but your circumstances are unique. So please use this video and other videos like it as a starting point, another bit of information along the way. And if needed, always consult professionals for important aspects of your own plan, your own future. Another thing, renting versus, I talked about this in a previous video, a recent video, renting versus buying. Let me just clear something up before we get into the costs, because this always causes confusion. Accommodation here in Spain, it's a huge factor, but there are so many variations, which makes this sort of topic quite difficult to cover. Some people rent, some people own outright, some people come and get a mortgage, some people want very expensive property, some people are looking for very discounted property. So rather than trying to cover all the various different property setups, I'm going to focus this video on renting, because I would say that's how most people start, even if that is just renting for a summer period to be sure of the area. So if you already own a home here or plan to buy, you can easily adjust the numbers. You know, just subtract your rent, work in your community fees, that sort of thing. But to keep it consistent, all the budget examples in this video are based around renting a typical long-term property. Right, let's get stuck in. First of all, we've all seen the videos and the headlines. Live in Spain for 800, 900, 1,000 a month. And while that is technically possible, it's quite a narrow version of life that you'll be living. Because the truth is, your comfort depends on what you need, what you're used to, and how flexible you are. Like, are you someone who's happy with a simple routine, basic expenditure? Or do you want to eat out regularly? Do you want to travel, have a car, or live in a livelier or more market area? Because there's no right or wrong way to retire or semi-retire. But understanding what each different budget level looks like here in Spain will go a long way in helping you make a realistic plan. So we're going to go through 3 example budgets, and each one will give you a good idea of what sort of lifestyle each one supports, both for single people and couples. So start with 1,000 a month for a single person, and this is the minimum amount that most people ask about. Now, for myself, as I've explained in many videos, I live on around 1,000 euro a month, but I own my own property, so I don't have any rental costs, which makes a huge difference. It really takes pressures off and gives me a lot more flexibility. But the breakdown I'm about to give you is for someone who's renting. So if you're living alone on 1,000 euro per month, this can definitely be done. Whenever I came to Spain initially, 3 years ago, I rented and lived on 1,000 euro a month. But like everywhere else, over those 3 years, prices have been creeping up all over Europe. everywhere. So now, to be able to live, I believe, in that amount would require a lot of discipline. A basic apartment, little or no alcohol, no extravagances. Also, it leaves little or no room for emergencies. So before I think you even start to think about moving over to any other country to live, you need to have a substantial backup fund that never gets touched. So that means you need to be strategic about your rent, avoid unnecessary extras, and think of things like eating out as a rare, cheap indulgence. So you have to know that you can live like that. And this is a rough breakdown of how I see that split, that €1,000 splitting up in current times. Rent, you'd be looking between 300 and 500, and you can get cheaper if you're willing to move inland to a small village or town and you're willing to live somewhere basic. Utilities and internet, keeping everything to a minimum, around €100 per month. Groceries, 250 to 300, and that's shopping smart and mostly cooking at home. Transport, it's a tricky one. I've allowed between 50 and 100, but that really depends on your needs and your location, because maybe all the transport you'd ever need is a bicycle. And then I've allowed €100 for extras and treats, and that leaves you with very little buffer, practically no buffer, maybe not a buffer. But it is workable for the right type of person, especially if you really enjoy a quiet, slower lifestyle. Now, as a couple, €1,000 each, €2,000. This changes the picture a fair bit. You can split the rent, you can split bills, shop in bulk and jointly pay for a lot of stuff. Eating out maybe becomes something that you can do once or twice a week and not just on special occasions. You'll have a bit more room for travel, hobbies, maybe even health insurance and a slightly more active social life. So yes, €1,000 for a single is very basic, but 1,000 each for couples is certainly much more comfortable, especially if you live smart. Now, €1,500 per month. This is what I call the sweet spot. This, whenever I was doing all my budgeting way back, this is what I wanted. I never achieved it, but this is what I wanted. 1,500 a month makes a massive difference. You know, you're not rich, but you're not watching every cent either. And for a single person, this gives you a proper breathing room. Rent, 500 to 600 maybe. Central Torrevieja, the balcony, swimming pool. Utilities and internet, 100, 120. Food and groceries, 300, 350. Social life, cafes, a few meals a week out, 150 to 200. Public transport. And if you do have a car, you have to factor in your insurance, your fuel, and everything into that. 100, 150 a month. But these things are often cheaper here than in the UK, in England, and certainly the USA. So this is where Spain starts to feel a lot more relaxing, not just affordable. You're not counting every penny, you're not counting every coffee you drink. You can maybe do the odd spontaneous weekend away. You could join clubs or do things you enjoy without the worry of running out of money. So couples at 1,500, 3,000 a month, you're in a very strong position. Bigger apartment or smaller villa, car, travel money, great food, private health insurance, and flexibility. You're still not rich, but you're definitely living in comfort with no financial worries, and maybe even still saving. Compare that to what you would have in the UK. It still costs a lot less living here and most other places in Western Europe. And scenario 3, 2,000 or more euros per month. Oh, I wish. This is the level where you can sort of stop thinking about the things that you can't afford to do and really start focusing on exactly how you want to live. Although I do that anyway on my 1,000 budget. On 2,000 for a solo person, you could rent a luxury apartment, although I wouldn't do that. Maybe with sea views, travel often, keep a decent car. Again, pay for good private health insurance. Enjoy hobbies like golf, enjoy regular nights and evenings out and social events, and still having room for substantial saving. And couples on 2,000 a month each, 4,000 a month, well, that's well above average. I think when you get to that sort of level, you're choosing your location, for example, on your preference as opposed to the cost. And most things are open to you, so I'm not going to list them. And in that amount, you're not going to spend it all unless you go looking for ways to spend it all. Does that make sense? Yes. So that's the three examples. But of course, it's not just about money. It's not just about the numbers. Because here's the truth. Yes, money makes things easier, but it doesn't guarantee comfort or happiness. You also need to consider where you live. Prices vary massively, especially from region to region. Your accommodation style, as I mentioned earlier, renting or buying, lifestyle expectations, quiet life, full social calendar, your social network and people around you, the type of people that are around you. And you know, I know couples living amazingly on altogether €1,800 a month. But I've also seen and know solo expats who struggle on €2,000 a month because they've made mistakes. They've chose apartments above their means in locations that are really above their means, you know? Now, the next thing, this is always complicated. I get asked about this all the time, and it's anything to do with healthcare, and anything to do with healthcare is hard to answer. Again, because there's so many variations, people in different situations. So I would say this is the single most complicated subject to understand when moving to Spain, because there's a lot of disinformation out there. And the truth is, everybody's situation is different depending on their age, their nationality, their residency status. For me, as an EU citizen with an EU passport, it wasn't too difficult. My journey was a little bit different to some of my friends. When I first arrived, now everyone can do this, I applied immediately for my NIE card, which is the foreigner identification number. But with that, because I had my EU passport, I was then able to apply and get my SIP card, which is Spain's public healthcare card. And this is what you need to access the public health system. So I was on the local health register from basically the start. Have a Spanish doctor, meaning I'm covered for care here. Now, a few months ago, and I've done a video or two on this, when I decided to go for or apply for my full residency, I needed to get full health care for 1 year to make the application for residency. It's important to understand that this is just my particular situation as an EU passport holder, an EU citizen. The requirement for other nationalities, such as Americans, British, Australians, are completely different, and they'll likely need to maintain private health insurance in the long term. Now, I don't know all the rules. I think when you get to a certain age that you can then apply to get into the Spanish health system, but I don't know anything about that at this stage. Okay, so just me talking my own circumstances there, think about how sort of complicated that was. And it takes time to figure all these things out, to get the right information from the right sources. So yes, I mentioned earlier on, when I arrived in Spain, I lived on €1,000 a month with rent. I now live in Spain on €1,000 a month still, but I own my own small apartment, which takes a huge pressure off. I have zero debts, no debts, and I live a very simple but very happy life. I drive, I walk the dogs, I meet friends, I film these videos for my 2 YouTube channels. And honestly, I'm more content now than I ever have been in my whole life, living on maybe 3 times less than I used to earn. But I do also have some safety buffers and some, not a lot, but some income from the YouTube channels themselves, which allows me the luxury of being able to travel a fair bit on cheap flights and discount hotels. But that doesn't mean €1,000 is right for you. It really, really depends on you, the type of personality you are, your life. And if you're going to be renting, it makes a big difference. But it shows what's possible. Oh, I'm sitting, there's a beautiful sunset there, and it's about to go away. I'll show you it. I thought when the sun goes down, I'll show them, and then I nearly forgot. Isn't that beautiful? I see that a lot. So can you live in Spain in a lowish fixed income? Yes, absolutely. and certainly better than at home in Ireland, UK, America. But it depends on how you structure it, how you structure your life, how disciplined you are. €1,000, very basic for a single, but manageable for the right person. 1,500 a month, sweet spot, balanced, flexible. 2,000 a month really means you're not having to worry too much about money, unless you're a mad spender. So yes, you don't need to be rich. Yes, I can prove that. You definitely don't need to be rich. You just need to be smart. And most of all, you need to be realistic and honest with yourself. I always worry I'll do one of these videos and some person will be watching it who really just can't afford to do this, but get inspired and come. But at the end of the day, always keep the money by for a flight back home. So that's it for this one. I hope it helped. And if you've got questions about your own situation or answers for others, drop them in the comments. As usual, please, it really helps the channel. Give it a thumbs up, this video, right now, right below you. Look, it's there, look, see the wee thumbs up? Just a wee touch. Really, really helps the channel. Subscribe if you want to see my next video. And stay tuned, because the next few videos will go even deeper into life here in Spain. All right, but until next time, bye for now. Sun's nearly gone. Fantastic.